Hi everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and what a mess. What a mess around Anthony Martial. I mean, look, blame apportion probably isn't the right way to put this, but a big story broke last night that Anthony Martial was being forced to train on his own after a big bust-up with Erik ten Hag. Numerous news outlets reported it. We've reacted to it. It's all over social media. Then this afternoon, the agent of Anthony Martial has come out strongly denying this and saying yet again it's just another example of people trying to ridicule or damage Anthony Martial's name when he's been at this football club and been professional for 9 years. Remember, I said this on the morning show. Look, whatever you think about Martial, I do think he's been treated unfairly by certain aspects of the media, ex-players and our fan base. I don't think he can be thrown into the Paul Pogba camp or the Jadon Sancho camp or the Di Maria camp or the Alexis Sanchez camp. I think with Martial, there is a player there that I've always liked who over the last 18 months, 2 years, has been injury prone. That's why it's time for Martial to go. His contract's running out in the summer and he's not one for the future. So it's right to part ways in January, but that's not going to happen. And I think people just want to run a story that they've been trying to run for years, that Martial's a troublemaker, that he's lazy. And actually, they've been outed as incorrect. And look, I'm not going to go in on particular journalists or news outlets on this. How many stories over the years get run that aren't true? But Man United have clarified it and his agent has clarified it, and it does leave United in a mess in relation to the striker situation. So this is what the agent has had to say. Philippe Lamberlet has says, what is said about Anthony Martial is completely false. He was not excluded from the group and he has no problem with Erik ten Hag. He is simply going to undergo a small operation on his abductors, which he should have done for a while and which did not allow him to be 100%, so he will do it now. So his agent is saying there's no problem with Anthony Martial and Erik ten Hag. He is going to have a bit of an operation and that's what's holding him back at the moment. Now, Manchester United, as we understand on the United Stand, this is what we've had on the situation, because obviously there's always two sides to a story. You've got journalists reporting a fallout. You've got the agent saying there is no fallout. And then this is what we understand from in the last half an hour. The United Stand can confirm that reports stating that Anthony Martial has been exiled from the first team are false. It's understood that Anthony Martial is training separately whilst he recovers. This is standard procedure for injured players. Mason Mount is also training alone whilst recovering. So the truth of the matter is the story around Anthony Martial is fabricated, as we understand it from club sources and the agent of Anthony Martial. So where this story's come and how it's developed, I would imagine it's the same as any other leak. It comes from a club source who wants to put something out there and people buy into it. Look, journalists are never 100% correct. If they were, they'd be the gold standard. We know that Manchester Evening News, the Daily Mail, the Athletic, Telegraph have got things wrong and will get things wrong. They shouldn't be ridiculed for that. Not everybody's going to get everything right. But I think it is important to clarify and come out and clarify. And I hope some of them do come out and clarify, because Anthony Martial needs to leave Manchester United. You know, there's no point giving him a new contract. He has had injuries. It's time to part ways. But it's not fair to part ways with his name and reputation being dragged through the mud for things that haven't happened. And clearly, he hasn't been exiled. Clearly, he has got some sort of injury. And clearly, that's very frustrating for a different reason. But come on, I think Martial's been treated unfairly enough in his time at Manchester United. And actually, I think the truth with Anthony Martial is that he's just quite a reserved character. You know, he doesn't do all the advertising, all the interviews. I think he's quite a reserved character. And some people take that as arrogant or lazy. And it's unfair. It's unfair. And we mustn't do that. And we said that about Sancho. The Sancho issue is about turning up for training and performance. It's not about what he's like as a person. That's not fair to go after someone for that, really. But it does present a problem for Manchester United, of course. I mean, I'm sure many of you are thinking about this as you're listening. What does that mean about the striker situation in January? Well, I think what it means is that we've got 13 days left, less than 2 weeks, in this January transfer window, and Anthony Martial needs an operation. So I'd be stunned if we are going to remove Anthony Martial from Manchester United before January the 31st. United definitely wanted to do it, but you're not going to be able to do that in 13 days when he needs an operation. Now, I don't know the extent of this injury. Maybe there is still an opportunity to move him on. But the bottom line here is that he's out of contract at the end of June. He's on around 250 grand a week. If he stays at Manchester United, recovers, uses our facilities, maybe gets a little bit of game time. Anthony Martial, settled, good money. Why disrupt yourself in the summer? Planning yourself out with your agent. I can see the attraction of Anthony Martial just saying, look, I'm honouring the contract. I'm going to get myself fit and I'm going to find myself a move in the summer. You're not going to get anything for it. I'm free. Frustrating, but frustration should be aimed at the club, not at the player. I got it wrong in the summer and I've put my hands up a few times. I was frustrated because Harry Maguire wouldn't leave when we had a good offer from West Ham that United want to accept. But why should Harry Maguire take a 50% pay cut if United aren't going to cover the rest of his wages, which they apparently weren't going to do? It's frustrating because you want Maguire to go so you can move forward as a football club. It's frustrating because you want Martial to go so you can move forward as a football club. But in fairness to the players, they've got contracts. And why should they take pay cuts? Why should they help the club out when the club gave them those contracts? So it looks like Martial runs his contract down now. And that looks like what's going to happen, especially if he's recovering from an injury. What does that mean for Ten Hag? Well, I look jealously at what Chelsea are doing. You know, they're trying to raise a lot of money to bring in a striker in January. Arsenal may well do the same. And Man United are sat there going, well, we've got this player that we don't really want to use, that we now can't move, that's going to run his contract down, and he's going to cost us about 6 million quid between now and June in wages. Ten Hag's got two options here. Well, he hasn't. It depends what happens above him. He either just goes, right, that's it then, isn't it? You know, I'll use Martial as the backup to Rasmus. Obviously, it's just very stopgap. It's like having a loan. It's like having Anthony Martial on loan when he's fit. Let's see how that goes. Or he goes, look, I don't want Martial, and it's not my fault. You can't get rid of him. I never bought him in the first place. Get me somebody in on loan that gives me more options. United may still do a loan option. They may still do one. But the Martial situation makes it difficult because if Martial's not there, you're saving money on Martial's wages. And that money can then be used for a loan. For example, if Martial goes somewhere and they cover half his wages, that's £100,000 a week. That's £400,000 a month. You know, that adds up over 6 months to what? It's not, it's 2.5, 3 million quid, isn't it? So I think that for United would be quite useful towards a loan striker. But where does the money come from when you're not saving money on Martial? So it may well be that this Martial injury, much the same as Phil Jones and other players in the past, you know, we used to get a lot of injuries in the transfer window. And some people used to get cynical and say, oh, they're just doing that because they want to run the contract down here. But the situation is Martial hasn't fell out with Ten Hag. He's not training on his own because there's been a fallout. He's actually got an injury problem according to the agent. The club have verified there hasn't been a fallout and it's normal practice for people to train on their own. The big question is, we know Martial will be leaving in the summer for nothing. You know, a player that we've spent over £100 million on fees and wages walks out the club at nothing in his late 20s. It's a joke. It's a failure. I don't mind a player walking out the club for nothing at 34. But a player walking out the club who we bought as a teenager in his late 20s for nothing when we spent over £100 million in wages and transfer fees is ridiculous. And it's another failing. But look, Ineos, in a way, this is a positive because Ineos needs to get exposed to this nonsense. They're in place now. They've got 25%. They need to see firsthand the challenges that managers face at Manchester United with signings they didn't make, running contracts down and hindering them from progressing. And that's what we're seeing here. But look, I think the important thing is that you can empathise with Martial's situation. Of course you can. And with Manchester United, this probably stops us doing something in the January transfer window. Maybe. I still think there is a chance that we will do something around the striker position on loan. I just don't know what that's going to be, and I don't know what the quality of it is. It could be a Weghorst or an Ighalo. It could be Choupo-Moting. But I certainly think it makes it difficult because it's been well known that Martial's departure would lead to somebody coming in on loan. And if Martial's not going anywhere, it may be a case that we just carry on with what we've got, which, you know, I think Martial, when he's fit, can do something for us. And also, let me just say, silver lining, Martial needs to put himself in the shop window. We could have a Willian on our hands here. Remember Willian? He was at Chelsea just after COVID. His contract was running out. COVID restarted the games in the summer, and Willian was the best player in the world for about 2 months because he wanted to move. He was coming out of contract. So maybe, and I was speaking to Ben Foster about this the other day, when you've got a long contract, some players switch off. They're like, I'm made. When your contract's running down, some players switch on and go, I need to work hard because I've got to get a wage next year. So maybe we get something from Martial in the next few months. Maybe we get Martial focused and driven, and, you know, that could help us. I don't know. You've got to try and find the positives in these situations. Get your comments in below. What do you think about the situation? Do you have sympathy with the club, Martial? Do you have sympathy with Ten Hag, the situation? Do you think we will still try and bring someone in? Get your comments in below. Oh, and please, 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 I've dropped the link in the video description. It's on my channel. Driving with Goldbridge is back today. Please just give it a try. You might be like, what's that? Give it a try. Link's in the description, and it's in the video description as well. Give it a go. You might quite like it. As a favour. Thanks for watching. Take care. We're back at 8 o'clock. An exciting thing at 8 o'clock. Make sure you tune in. I'll speak to you all in a bit.